For the past 15 years, the beauty industry has been locked in a very public debate with the indie beauty brands around synthetic versus natural ingredients and formulations. So think parabens versus essential oils, or lab-made ingredients versus plant-based alternatives. And for a long time, that binary defined how everyone thought about clean, green, indie beauty. And it polarized the industry. It divided consumers. It fueled countless marketing campaigns. But today, I think that argument is starting to fade. Not necessarily because it's been resolved, but because I think the conversation has moved on. We're no longer just asking what an ingredient is. We're now asking where it comes from, how it's made, what it costs our environment and our communities. And those questions are leading us to a very different kind of divide, which is where I think the future of sustainable beauty will go. Because I believe that the next big battle in beauty isn't going to be about whether something is synthetic or natural. It's instead going to be about whether it was harvested from nature or grown in a lab. So think lavender fields versus petri dishes. That, I think, is the future of sustainable beauty. And it's coming faster than you think, because we're entering a new era, one where the next big divide could be between brands that harvest their ingredients from nature and those that grow them in a lab using biotech. So let's explore the future of sustainable beauty in this episode. Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations. I'm Lorraine Dallmeier, chartered environmentalist, biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. And this is part 4, my final part of a special 4-part series called The Truth About Sustainable Beauty, where I share the biggest insights that I've gained from hosting this podcast for the last 7 years. Now, I've interviewed hundreds of people all across the cosmetics sector for these episodes, and I've seen some big patterns emerge, and I plan to share those with you in this short series so that you can see them too. Each episode, I'll tackle one of the uncomfortable truths that the beauty industry doesn't necessarily want to face. Now, in this final episode, in this short 4-part series, we're looking ahead. What's next for beauty? What will the future of sustainability look like in an industry that's still wrestling with overconsumption and vague marketing and a long history of exploitation? So let's start with what I think is the biggest shift coming our way, which is biotech. 15 years ago, as I said at the beginning, the big divide in beauty was between synthetic versus natural. The industry was super polarized. You were either pro-lab or pro-plant. But today, I think that argument is fading a bit. The synthetic versus natural debate dominated green beauty for years, but now it's losing its grip, not because that debate has necessarily been settled, but because the industry and its consumers have moved on to more complex questions. So today we're less concerned with whether an ingredient is natural and more interested in where it comes from, how it's made, what its impact is. Consumers want both performance and ethics. They want transparency, safety, low environmental impact, and efficacy. And they're starting to realize that those things don't map neatly onto those two binary camps of natural versus synthetic. Now, at the same time, the binary itself has started to collapse a little bit. Many natural ingredients are heavily processed. Many synthetic ingredients are nature identical or derived from fermentation. And biotech is blurring the lines even further. So the old debate feels increasingly outdated, like it's asking the wrong question in all honesty. And the new split that I predict, that I see emerging, is this: biotech versus harvested. Because the big brands, they're already pivoting. Biotech offers consistency, purity, traceability, and control. It helps to avoid the reputational risks of human rights abuses in supply chains, something we've covered many times here on the podcast. And it sidesteps the very real pressure that the beauty industry places on biodiversity. So we've seen major players start growing their own ingredients to get around the complexity of sourcing. Clarins, for instance, they announced plans to cultivate ingredients on their own farm in the Alps. And that's not just a romantic return to nature. It's a risk mitigation strategy, because when you control your crops, you don't have to worry about endangered species or third-party suppliers or activist exposés. But even that model isn't scalable forever. So for many of the big brands, biotech is the next logical step. And I'm not scared of that. In fact, I think biotech can be amazing. We already use it in so many different ways in beauty, including in natural and organic beauty. So most consumers don't even realize that many of the most common ingredients we see in our skincare products, like hyaluronic acid or niacinamide or ceramides, those are already being produced biotechnologically. But what I am cautious about is how biotech will be marketed. Because make no mistake, this rise of lab-grown ingredients will come with a heavy dose of so-called skintellectualism, with scientific-sounding terms and proprietary molecules and claims that certain ingredients work better precisely because they've been engineered. I can already see the ads now, backed by science, clinically proven, lab pure performance. And all of that is fine until it becomes a smokescreen, until it reinforces the idea that lab-grown equals better and harvested equals backwards. Or worse, until it becomes another version of greenwashing, but just now with a whiter lab coat. And at the same time, I don't think indie beauty is going anywhere. I think indie brands will continue to differentiate themselves. Some of them will embrace biotech, and others will double down on storytelling, on provenance, connection, place. They'll show us their lavender fields and their distilleries and their slow infusions. And in response, I predict that the big brands will lean harder into scientific authority. They'll try to so-called out-clinical the small brands. They'll position themselves as the only ones with the technology to really change your skin. And this all brings us to the big question, which is, who wins here? Because here's the thing, I don't think it's a fight or a battle or a war. I think the future of sustainable beauty will be a patchwork. Some products will be best served by lab-grown ingredients. Others will shine because of their connection to nature and people. What matters most is transparency, integrity, and knowing when each approach makes sense. The danger isn't the innovation, it's the messaging. Because if we start using science as a way to bypass ethics or to distract from overproduction, then we're just repeating the same patterns. We're still using sophistication to sell more. We're still solving for symptoms rather than root causes. But if we use science to reduce pressure on ecosystems, to eliminate exploitation, to create products that genuinely support skin health, then biotech becomes a powerful ally. And that is where my hope lies, because the future doesn't have to be extractive. It can be collaborative. We can have an industry that respects both nature and innovation, that honors traditional knowledge and embraces new technologies, that sells skincare without selling shame, that learns to say enough. So here's my final challenge to you in this series. If we end up going down the route of splitting the beauty industry into biotech versus harvested, don't choose a side, just choose awareness. When you see brands making claims, whether natural or biotech, just ask what sits behind those claims. Who benefits, who's impacted, and what does sustainability really mean in that context? Because the future of beauty is being built right now, and we get to shape it, and that is very exciting. Thanks for listening to this episode of Green Beauty Conversations. This was my final part of my 4-part The Truth About Sustainable Beauty series, in which I shared some of my insights gained from hosting this podcast for the last 7 years. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review and share it with someone who wants to see the beauty industry do better. And don't forget to visit formulabotanica.com to try our free formulation course and learn how to be part of the change. I'll be back next week with my next guest interview, and I'll see you then.